Okay, so we've made it to the final video, and I'm going to be showing you probably the thing you've probably been waiting for. You may well have skipped all the way to the end of my video, but that's absolutely fine. I'm going to show you how to do the 3D effect, okay? And it's probably going to be a lot more simple than you think. Okay, certainly a lot more simple maybe than some of the other things we've done through this video if you have indeed followed along all the way through. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to add a chain trigger. And before I go any further, I just kind of want to explain what we're kind of doing, how we're going to make this all work. So we've got this scroll view, this carousel paging view. And the thing about the chain trigger, if you don't know what the chain trigger is, the chain trigger, well, for one, it's very hard to say, especially 3 times fast. But the chain trigger it's a continuous conditional trigger. I think they call it a conditional trigger. Let me have a look. I can never remember. Yes, it's a conditional trigger. So basically it's going to change based on something else changing. Okay. So we're going to effectively chain or connect the scroll position to our 3D rotate effect. And if you can see here, we've got a 3D rotate effect in here. Okay. So that's effectively how we're going to make this all work. That's the reason why we're using a carousel in the first place. There are a few other ways you could do this. This is by far, I think, the simplest and easiest way to do it. Okay, so with that explanation out of the way, we're going to carry on. So we've got our chain trigger added here, and we want to target the carousel container. So I'm just going to find the carousel container here at the top. And again, within that carousel, we want to target the scroll property. Okay, so we want to chain the carousel scroll property to 3D rotate. So let's choose 3D rotate as our response. And what do we want to rotate? Well, we want to rotate story 1. Okay, so we're going to choose the story 1 container. And we've got to think in 3D now a little bit. Okay, so as this whole carousel moves, this first story needs to 3D rotate away from us. Okay, so basically this part is, the left-hand side is going to be animating, but the right-hand side is going to be fixed. So this is what we call our pivot point. Okay, and within 3D rotate, we can actually set a custom pivot. So you're probably familiar that you've got, if we just click over here on the properties panel, you've got an origin here, which is effectively our pivot point of the whole container, but we can actually override that within the 3D rotate response. So that's what we're going to do, because we do actually need to move the pivot points in different places depending on what part of the animation we're dealing with. Okay, so we're going to set pivot to custom. And then once we're in custom mode, we want it to pivot from the middle right. Okay, actually you could do it any of these on the right hand side. I'm just going to choose middle right. Obviously we're only kind of rotating in one dimension, so it doesn't really matter as long as it's on the right hand side. And we've got this other curious property within 3D rotate called perspective depth. And that's basically, you can kind of think of that as, if you're into photography and if you think about like different lenses you might use, so you might use a wide angled lens, or you might use a fisheye lens, you might use different sized lenses to get different kind of perspectives. So this is kind of mimicking that kind of thing. So it's going to be how acute the 3D animation or the 3D transform actually shows on screen. Okay. By default, it's 400. With a bit of playing around, I've decided that 800 is the better perspective depth for the Facebook Stories 3D rotate. So we're going to change that here to 800. Okay. So we've got this chain trigger set up. So again, like I said before, we need to connect a property of one object to the property of another. And the first set of boxes here, so this is the range, and you can see underneath it says the word scroll. So this is the scroll range that we need to put in, that we want our 3D rotate to attach itself to. Okay. So we know our scroll view is always going to start at 0. So that's good. We're going to leave that at 0. And we know the first story is 375 wide. So our second value is going to be 375. Okay, so that takes care of the range of scrolling we want to connect to. Now we need to tell it, so what 3D angle do we need to rotate to? So when the scroll view is at 0, what do we want our first 3D rotation range to be? So it's also going to be at 0 because we're starting with a flat surface here. So that's at 0 angle, okay? And we want it to rotate like a box. So to do that, we're going to rotate it to minus 90 degrees, okay? So that's the range. So basically, when the scroll is 0, the 3D rotate is going to be 0. And every pixel that the scroll scrolls is going to increment the angle that the 3D rotate is going to rotate. So these things are now intrinsically connected together, hence the word chain. Okay, final thing we need to do is we've got control over the direction of 3D travel. We're actually going to choose this second option here. So we want it to rotate this way. And that's all we need to do for this first 3D rotate. Okay, so let's just have a quick look at that. Let's hit preview. And I'm just going to do the manual override here. So you can see here now, you can see the first one is rotating in 3D and it's rotating away from us. You can see we've got this pivot point here, the point where the custom pivot point sticks to. So we're rotating from that origin point. But you can see the second story is still in 2D, so we need to do that. So let's close this down, come back to our chain trigger. So we're just going to duplicate this 3D rotate because we've done a lot of work that we can reuse. We want to target story 2. Cool. And we need to change the pivot point. So for the second story, it wants to stick to the left-hand edge because that's basically the point of the 3D fold. So for that, we need to move our custom pivot point over to the left-hand side. And we also need to rotate in a slightly different direction. So we just need to take that minus off. So we need to just rotate it from 0 to 90 degrees. Okay. So we keep the range the same because we're still basing this 3D rotate on the scroll position going from the first story to the second story. So it's still from 0 to 375. Okay. So let's open up preview and see what we've got. Okay, so if we start to manually rotate, we can see, we've got a little mistake there. Let's just go back and double check this. I know why. We need these two values need to be the other way around. My bad. Sorry, guys. So let me just explain that. So we want it to start at 90 degrees. So we know that when the image is flat on, it's at 0 degrees. But we want the second story to be 90 degrees. So imagine it's the side of the box. So it's actually, because it has no depth, it's effectively invisible because it's like a sheet of paper. That if you look at a sheet of paper that's side on, that's kind of where we want it to be, right? So to do that, we need it to start at 90 degrees. And of course, we want it to rotate to be flat, which is, as we know, is 0 degrees. So we want 0 in there. And hopefully that should actually work now. Let's give that a go. Go into preview and try that again. Okay, so I'm going to drag and lo and behold, we've actually got the correct rotation angle going on here now. Okay, so there you go. And if we just wait till we get to the end of this, the beautiful thing about this approach is because it's connected to the scroll property, every time the scroll auto moves, it's going to, because the 3D rotate is chained, it's going to use the 3D rotate as we move from one to the other. There you go. So obviously you could carry on adding more stories. You could carry on adding more 3D rotates. You just need to kind of work out what the starting point of each rotate should be to what the end point of it should be as well. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this look at how you create the Facebook story 3D rotate carousel thing. Lots of things going on in this video. Hopefully it's been useful for you. Hopefully you've had fun building it. I definitely had some fun working this one out. And it was good fun to work with some 3D features. And I think just generally in social media apps, you got some quite cool interaction stuff that you can try and mimic. It's a lot of fun to build. Okay, so I'll leave it there. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, then please do so. You'll obviously get a notification of when I release new videos, and it will certainly help me grow the channel as well. So really appreciate if you could do that. And if you like the video, please give it a like. That also will help, spread the word, get ProtoPilot out there, get more designers prototyping and doing less static design. Okay, so with all that said, thank you very much. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.